I wanted to step away from the breakdown videos to do something a bit more on the analytical side, and I thought talking about pick and ban strategy would be interesting. OMG's 3-0 win over Najin Whiteshield was one of the biggest upsets of the tournament so far, and not something that most people were expecting. A lot of the issues for Shield stem from their pick and ban phase, so I'm going to highlight the issues in their draft and talk about what they should have done in the situations that they were put in. When you're prepping for your picks and bans, the most important thing is to make a list of the contested picks between each team. It's different between every team depending on what each team prioritizes, and it's crucial that you have an understanding of the contested picks so you can manipulate the draft to get as many of them as possible. For these two teams, my list is as follows: Alistar, Zilean, Ryze, Thresh, Lee Sin, Janna, Maokai, and Zed. I don't think this list is surprising for most of you, so I'm not going to bother spending too much time talking about it, but I do want to touch on two champions. The reason I have Janna listed above Zed is because not only does Janna counter Zed in teamfights, but she also works incredibly well with Zed. Janna ult counters Zed ult, and because Janna's shield gives so much AD, it skyrockets Zed's damage because he has a % AD increase on his W, and his AD ratios are also through the roof. So if you were to pick Janna before your opponent picks Zed, you not only dissuade them from picking Zed, but you also free up the option to run Janna and Zed together, which is one of the best combos in the game at the moment. If we take a look at some of Shield's recent games, we can see this combo in action. In the Korean qualifiers versus KT Bullets, they last picked Zed and Janna together on blue side and won. Zed did so well that the Bullets banned it the next game and then banned it again in the third game. In the series versus KT Arrows, the Arrows banned Zed the first game, gave the Janna Zed combo to Shield the next game, got stomped, and then immediately banned Zed again in the third game. In the series against SK Telecom T1K, Zed was banned all games by the purple side team. In their only loss against Cloud9 out of 3 games, they lost when Cloud9 was running the Janna Zed combo, and if you watch my recent breakdown video of the last teamfight in that game, you can see just how much damage High did with the Janna shield on him. It's pretty ridiculous. So we have all this proof of how strong this combo is together, yet we'll see in the picks and bans that Shield simply didn't put 2 and 2 together, even though they ran the combo multiple times in the past. Before we start dissecting the picks and bans, let's talk a little bit about priority. When you have a clear list of contested picks, you want to plan your draft around getting as many of the contested champions as possible while maintaining a coherent team comp and not deliberately playing into counter picks. Purple side generally has the advantage in this scenario because they get the last ban, so depending on the amount of bans, they can dictate how many contested picks they get if they play out the draft properly. So, for example, in this case we have 8 contested picks, so if blue side bans 2 of them, purple side will want to ban 3 of them to leave 3 contested picks up. This way, if blue side first picks 1 of them, purple side can then pick the other 2 that are left open. One way blue side can counter this is by leaving open 2 champions in the same role. So, for example, if you leave open Ryze, Janna, and Thresh, first picking Ryze means that purple side has to pick either Janna or Thresh, and then blue side gets the remaining one, leaving them with 2 contested picks instead of only 1. With these basics out of the way, let's get into the draft. Shield's draft in game 1 was probably the worst out of all 3 games. It was really atrocious. The beginning goes alright, but it gets bad once it gets to the Ryze ban. So let's talk about what's open at this point. Maokai, Zilean, and Thresh are all off the table, meaning there are 5 contested picks still open. Theoretically, if both teams didn't ban another contested pick, it would mean that Shield would be able to pick up 3 contested picks and OMG would only be able to get 2. Worst case scenario, OMG bans another for their third ban, and Shield still gets 4 and they get the first choice. What I would have liked to see from Shield here is an Irelia ban instead of a Ryze ban, and look to first pick Ryze. From tournament history, we know that Alistar has a near 100% ban rate on purple side, so you can safely assume that OMG is going to ban it, which leaves open Ryze. The one thing you have to be careful about when picking Ryze is the Irelia counter pick paired with a lot of early jungle pressure, so just take Irelia off the table. Plus, come on, taking going off both Ryze and Irelia at the same time is a win in itself. Going would probably resort back to something like a Mundo pick, which can definitely give Ryze some trouble in combination with Lee Sin camp, but at least it's something that you can play around with the lane swap. Instead though, they ban Ryze and first pick Zed, which is just mind blowing. Not looking to first pick Ryze on blue side is bad enough, but deliberately picking into the Janna counter is really bad. We talked earlier about the Zed and Janna synergy, and this is the point where Shield displays the fact that they don't really understand why they've been so successful as Zed in the past. To their credit, they hadn't had the chance to play Zed against Janna in an actual game, so maybe they thought that it was something that they could deal with, which obviously it wasn't. OMG goes on to pick Janna and Lee Sin, which is so smart of them. Not only picking up Janna to counter Zed, but also picking up the only priority pick left with Lee Sin. Shield picks up Kha'Zix and Corki next, which is fine. I mean, I would have preferred Lucian over Corki because that leaves open Lucian Nami, which allows you to create a lot of pressure bot lane, but the Corki is fine. OMG picks Ahri and Lucian, pretty standard. Then, for whatever reason, Shield picks Kassadin and Morgana, which is just like, what? Admittedly, the Morgana did better than I thought it would have done, but it had a lot to do with Sand and Cloud just not playing the lane well. Plus, credit to Gorilla, he played really well. Still though, I think Nami just makes so much more sense in this case. It provides a better laning phase, and it also makes more sense in the scope of their team comp. You can poke with Kha'Zix and Corki, and then sustain and disengage with Nami. But the real problem here is the Kassadin pick. I understand that they're trying to trick their opponents by picking both Kassadin and Zed so they don't know which is going mid or top, but come on, do you honestly think OMG is afraid of a top Zed or a top Kassadin? Irelia can freefarm against both of them, so it doesn't make a difference to Go-Going what he's playing against. If you're Shield, why not just pick Irelia here and force Go-Going to play something like Kalar Mundo? The Kassadin pick is just really bizarre, and it seemed like a case of Shield trying too hard to be cute instead of just picking standard. The second draft was also pretty horrendous for Shield, maybe even worse than the first, it's hard to say. Here we have a case where OMG bans 2 of the contested picks on blue side, which sets up Shield to get 3 priority picks against OMG's 1 if they play out the draft properly. Instead they waste 2 bans on Irelia and Lee Sin while leaving Ryze open. What did we just talk about earlier? What's Ryze's biggest weakness? Irelia in combination with early jungle pressure. If you're leaving Ryze open, why the hell would you ban yourself out from countering him? It's just mind-blowing. What they should have done is stuck with the Jace ban and then ban anything else they're uncomfortable with, or just a throwaway ban. I would argue Rengar, but let's be honest, none of us actually expected Loveling to be good on Rengar given his past record, so it would be unfair to expect Shield to ban it. The reason we want a throwaway ban here is because we want to take advantage of OMG only banning 2 priority picks and try to get more for ourselves. Maokai is considered a throwaway ban here since we'll be picking Irelia for top lane anyway, but honestly, Maokai will work just as well as Irelia in this situation. Both can easily set up kills on Ryze with ganks from Lee Sin, and Maokai will be good against the AoE that Ryze and potentially Orianna will bring in teamfights. Maokai also opens them up to running a Maokai Yasuo team comp if they wanted to, which is another incredibly strong combo. I'm actually a big fan of banning Nami here because Cloud has only played 5 champions in his competitive career: Thresh, Janna, Nami, Leona, and Morgana. He's only played Morgana once and it was pretty lackluster, and Leona isn't exactly an in-meta champion. So with 3 supports banned and an early Janna pick, he will be forced into playing Morgana or Leona, or playing something he's never played before, all of which are great options if you're Shield. So ban Zilean, Jace, and Nami, OMG first picks Ryze, you immediately counter Janna and Lee Sin, 2 huge power picks. Janna not only dissuades OMG from picking Zed, but is also a really good disengage pick versus Ryze, and of course, as we talked about earlier, Lee Sin is also a really good pick versus Ryze in early game, and it's just generally a really powerful pick in the early game. OMG would likely counter with Lucian or Kha'Zix, as is a standard, and then Shield picks up Corki in their top laner, Irelia or Maokai. OMG is then forced to pick their support, which would presumably be Leona, and then blind pick their mid laner, which would likely be Orianna since she's a safe pick. Now, if they still wanted to, Shield could pick up Zed here, or they could go for something else that does well against Orianna, like Xerath. I'm not sure if Goon plays Xerath or not, but it would round out their team comp pretty well. Poke with Corki and Xerath, disengage with Janna and Lee Sin, and a huge tank and AoE damage soak in Maokai. Alternatively, they could look to go more all-in with something like a Maokai Yasuo combo, or even go more all-in and ditch the Maokai for Irelia and look to snowball off the Ryze early, and allow Save to carry since we all know he's capable of it. The third draft was much better for Shield, and they pull off a couple clever moves here. Whether or not they're intentional is up for debate, but I like to give teams the benefit of the doubt. So, looking at these bans, people might think it's really strange because of the Lucian ban, but what's really cool here is that they're putting false emphasis on the AD carry pick to distract from the support pick. So, in this series, Corki and Lucian have been the only 2 AD carry picks, and when you only see 2 picks for 1 role 3 games in, people tend to tunnel in on those picks as if they're absolutely necessary. Of course, we know the reality is that picks like Twitch, Kog'Maw, and Tristana are all perfectly viable, and sometimes even better than Corki or Lucian in the right circumstances. By banning Lucian, it creates this sense of urgency for OMG that they have to pick Corki or else they'll forfeit it to Shield. But in reality, Shield doesn't really care too much about that. They care about picking up Janna, or at least that's what they should care about. Unfortunately, this is where it gets a bit difficult to give credit to Shield because, well, they pick up their AD carry and top laner when OMG already picked their AD carry and top laner in their first rotation. So, instead of picking up a priority pick like Janna, they pick up 2 champions that can't possibly be taken away from them. It's not like Janna can necessarily be counterpicked, so there's no reason for them to not pick it here. Don't forget, a Janna pick here also dissuades OMG from picking Zed and opens up Zed for themselves, which is a huge deal. Instead, they let OMG pick up Janna, which prevents them from picking up Zed, and then OMG also gets Zed on top of the Janna. What's so mind-blowing about this is that Grill is the guy that brought Janna into the competitive scene in the first place. No one would even be playing the champion if he hadn't showcased it during the Korean regionals, so I simply don't understand why Shield would be so hesitant to pick it. Plus, at some point you have to think, wow, Cloud got Janna both games and did really well. Maybe we should take it away from him. But they just kept giving it to him. It's not my intention to call it Shield or anything, but honestly, they played the draft so bad this series that it was hard to keep quiet about it. It's difficult to touch on everything in a short video like this, but I hope I could give you all at least a little insight into the drafting process. I have a few other videos made about Worlds already, so if you're interested in seeing more from me, you can find those on my channel. School keeps me pretty busy lately, but I'll try to release a video or two for the semifinals and finals, which should both be really exciting. But that's all I have to say for now, so thank you all for watching, good luck in your games, and I'll see you all next time.